Director, who's Kevin Rojak?
Who is Kevin Rojak?
I'm
We
sorry,
just jumped right
Susan.
into it.
Kevin
Wait, we're
Rojak,
live right now?
We should be
R-O-J-E-K?
live right now.
It doesn't look like we're live.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't
Just
recognize the
hope and
name.
believe.
Well, he's a special agent in
Oh, shoot,
charge
we are
at
live.
the FBI Pittsburgh
it's
office
Johnson.
looking into the assassination attempt on President Trump. Took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. My understanding is HSI had a number of agents at Butler at that particular day. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We had 16 agents, special agents assigned to the Butler Farm
You had
rally.
16 of your people there.
16, 1-6.
Do you know how many Secret Service agents were there that day?
No, sir, I don't.
But you had 16 of your agents supplementing and helping with the security of President Trump on July 13th in
Ahoy.
Butler, Pennsylvania.
We provided
Guys?
support to Secret Service as collateral law
sharing
enforcement
the
support.
live
We
stream
were
link
not in a
with
position where we were
my friends and
directly
family.
protecting the principal. We would never, as HSI agents, be assigned to that
Understand.
position.
But you were helping out that day.
Yes, sir.
And the guy who's doing the investigation, looking into what took place, where President Trump was hit by a bullet from the assassin, another American was killed, 2 other Americans were injured. The guy who was in charge of that investigation has not talked to you, even though 16 of your agents were there that day?
No, sir.
You don't even know Kevin Rojak, never heard of him?
I haven't. I can tell you that
How
Monday
wild is
after
that?
the
The
assassination
guy
attempt,
investigating the
in
Trump
West Palm Beach,
assassination
I
has
reached
not
out
called this
to
lady. She's
Acting
the
Deputy
essentially in
Director
charge of the
Vince
16 agents that
Tutone,
were on the ground.
Who was in West Palm or the vicinity at the time had gone down. I did speak to him on Monday to further.
You reached out.
I reached out to him, sir.
Do you know who Jeffrey Veltri is?
No, sir.
Okay, he's the guy in Miami who works for the FBI who's overseeing what took place Sunday, the second assassination attempt on President Trump. You have not talked to him,
No, sir.
but you have actively reached out. And who's the individual you spoke to in Miami? He works for HSI?
No, Vince Tutone. He's the acting deputy director for Secret Service.
For Secret Service, okay.
I will say, if I may, certainly with an incident like this, they are certainly very busy. I did not take any offense that they did
You're
not reach
asking?
out to me.
Yeah,
I-
who is
it's been 2
Executive
months.
Director Berger?
So she's in charge of
the guy in
Homeland Security
Butler, 2 months ago,
investigations.
and the guy running the
She's
investigation has not
Homeland
reached out to the
Security's
individual in
Homeland
charge of the 16
Homeland
agents who were there
Security
who was supposed to be helping
Okay.
supplement
brass,
protection of the
let's say.
president, former
And she has
president.
never talked to the
It's
person
something- our support to
investigating
Secret
on the
Service is
FBI
something
side
ongoing
or
that
the
we
Secret
do
Service
all the
side, I
time.
don't
It's
think,
baked into our mission.
on
We've
the
done
Trump
this
Do you have
assassination
agents in
attempt.
Miami on Sunday?
Either.
On the first or the
Working on
second?
President Trump's
Both.
detail or helping
She
supplement
called
his
in about
Secret
something,
Service detail?
but that's
Yes,
about
sir. We
it.
had 4.
You had 4?
We had 4. 2 were on shift and 2 were.
Hey, Brandy.
2 were
Hey,
on
Brandy.
shift,
What's
not
going
in the
on?
immediate vicinity. 2 were not on shift at the time of the.
So you
incident.
had agents at both of the assassination attempts on the former president, and the individuals at the FBI conducting the investigations have not talked to you. In one case, that's been over 2 months ago. That's
Correct.
your testimony. Is that accurate?
Correct.
I find that troubling. I find that troubling. Let's switch here for a second. What type of training do your
I don't know
agents
if you heard that. I was
receive
trying to get
before
the
they-
music going, but
Well, let me ask
whatever I
this.
did
How
was
long has
terrible.
HSI been supplementing the
know
Secret
if we could
Service
do it
and
in this
giving
format.
agents to help the Secret Service in their duties?
Sir, thank you for that question. Certainly back to our time when we were U.S. Customs Service agents with Secret Service under the Department of Treasury. I don't have the exact date, but this is historically something that we have supported Secret Service. I personally.
Fairly common, you're
Yes.
saying. Okay, and is it common to have like that many agents at an event with the former president? Like, was that unusual, or is 16 kind of normal, or do you sometimes have more? Sometimes, what's kind of normal?
It varies based on the need and the situation.
Is it ongoing? Does President Trump always have some HSI people with him now when he's traveling, or even it looks like when he's at his residence in Florida?
We provide support to Secret Service, and then they assign
oh, hey, Drake.
our
What's
personnel
going on?
as needed.
Okay. Madam Chair, I just find it, I find it kind of astonishing that the people doing the investigation haven't talked to the individual who's in charge of so many of these agents who've been supplementing President Trump's security detail. Maybe that's why it's good that in the case of what happened on Sunday, Governor DeSantis is actually doing his own investigation. Maybe that'll be done a little bit better. With that, I yield back to the chairman.
Good thing Governor DeSantis is doing his
Yeah,
own.
mic drop. Governor DeSantis is on the case.
Thank you.
Say that one more time. It's gonna.
It's all right. Gunasekara.
That's what I meant.
That's what y'all said.
Thank you.
Thank
Clearly,
you.
she
Chairman
is
Comer, thank you
my
for being here
inspiration
today.
on
Thank you,
this
Member
jacket,
Raskin.
wearing
Really
this
is an
jacket
honor to
today.
be with
We need to
all
get
of
her in
y'all
some Pierce
and,
Bespoke.
fellow members
Absolutely.
of the committee. I have a prepared opening statement that I'll get into in just a second, but Ranking Member Raskin, you reiterated and have created a boogeyman that just isn't there. I did author the EPA chapter on Project 2025, but in the course of that, I did not work with President Trump, with any of the people who work for him directly or his campaign. And it is very misleading to suggest that there's any coordination there because I can personally tell you it did not happen. And I am not vying for a position in the next administration. I've actually left DC and I've moved to a small town in
So,
Mississippi.
did she
where
just
I
admit that
interact
she
every
created the
day
Project
with people who
2025?
live
Chapter 13.
outside this
Okay.
bubble
She
of
was an
gaslighting and
EPA
misleading.
expert in
And
some
they actually
capacity.
are dealing with the consequences caused by
I haven't vetted her
policy
personally.
decisions.
Yeah, no,
That's
guys,
what she's there as
this
the
is,
witness
this
on
is
the
so
EPA.
important because the left is
Defined
using
by
this Project
creating
2025 to say, oh,
hardship.
we can't elect
I
Trump. Look at
understand
all
why
the
it's hard
terrible
to
things
think
he's going to
about
do, but
He has nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
And
that's
she's
what
about
she
to say
said.
that.
To President Trump, but the Heritage Foundation has been very involved in pushing forward conservative policies for quite a while. And the Mandate for Leadership, the latest iteration, it's the 9th edition. This is a project that has been put out every few years since 1981. So it's been around for quite some time, and again, is more committed to representing the position of the broader conservative movement than any one candidate or person. And I understand why there is the creation of this boogeyman, because your leading candidate is one running away from policy actions she has taken that make Americans' lives much more difficult. In fact, Vice President Kamala Harris was recently asked on national television the following question: when it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? She said a lot of words, but she did not answer the question, because the reality is most Americans are not better off. Most Americans are struggling to deal with expensive gas, expensive electricity, and high-cost goods and groceries that have created financial burdens that Americans have had to deal with throughout the Biden-Harris administration. Their day one energy policies are a key driver behind Americans' increasing financial distress. From President Biden's promise to end all fossil fuels, alongside Vice President Kamala Harris's commitment to ban fracking, Americans have suffered under their radical agenda. From the energy perspective, this has included locking up development of resources and demonizing industries, mainly coal, oil, and natural gas, that still provide 80% of our daily energy needs. A recent report from the Institute of Energy Research has been tracking these actions, and they've found that since January 2021, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and congressional Democrats have taken over 250 actions that make it harder to produce energy in America. This has included stopping construction of the Keystone XL pipeline that immediately cut 11,000 domestic jobs, including thousands of union jobs, issuing a moratorium on new oil and gas permits on federal lands, greenlighting Putin's Nord Stream 2 pipeline while shuttering the development of U.S. pipelines along the East Coast, rejoining the disastrous Paris Climate Agreement that is squeezing out U.S. jobs and increasing the regulatory burden on American companies, launching a war on household appliances that are now 34% more expensive than 15 years ago, blocking the twin metals mine,
And
shuttering
they
U.S.
break
steelworker jobs
a lot
in
quicker
Minnesota,
than when you
and
bought them
access
15 years ago.
to critical minerals that we need more and more of, and instead this administration is making us more and more dependent on China. Slowing permits for LNG facilities from an average of 7 weeks to 11 months, then completely halting permits for new LNG facilities altogether. Mandating that Americans drive electric vehicles despite growing market resistance, infrastructure shortfalls, and a preference for more affordable and reliable gas-powered vehicles. Americans are dealing with the consequences of these actions every time they put gas in their car, pay their electricity bills, or go to the grocery store. Now,
And the dogs,
this
if you can't
isn't
hear them, this is why I'm
necessary
muted
for
most of the
purposes
time.
of
It's 'cause
protecting
the
the
dogs in the
environment
background.
or saving future generations from climate change. I know this because during the Trump administration, we were able to grow the economy, create jobs, reduce emissions, and address legacy environmental issues. The reality is that America needs more energy, and with the right policies in place and a pragmatic mindset from our leaders, we can build a strong economy that delivers lower cost for consumers, protects the environment, and reverses the negative financial consequences of the past 3.5 years.
David, we just
Again,
both
thank you
saw
for
that
your
at the
time,
same
and I look
time and
forward to your
pointed.
questions.
My colleagues
I
across
literally
the
was
aisle
having a
said that
conversation
those
about
that
this
cannot
earlier today
pronounce
with
Kamala's name correctly
friend.
are
This
is
elementary
Jacqueline's
age
favorite
children.
clip of the
I would
week.
like to enter
Oh
into
my
the
God.
record
Can I
an
just
article
say,
by
look at how good
Newsweek
she
saying
looks.
Bill Clinton
You wanna pause
pronounces
it and go
Kamala
into it for a
Harris' name
minute?
wrong during
Yes.
a DNC speech. Bill Clinton, along with
So I really had to step it up this week. I mean, obviously I wore the green blazer, but between the redhead and Ms. Mace, smoke show. These ladies look great.
Al Sharpton, rapper Lil Jon. Let's not
It's funny
forget that
because
Joe
someone slid
Biden
into
can't
her
say her
DMs. Did
name
you catch
right.
that?
Neither can
Yeah.
Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And this morning on Morning Joe, Joan Baez called her a camel. So I don't want to hear it. It's fake outrage. I would like to also enter into the record a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from
guy
Vanderbilt,
was
Michael
caught
Eric
lacking.
Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me racist on CNN, shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
So cringe.
Without
Then
objection.
the guy says, I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't
Did
think
Comer
he's
have
that
a heads
bent
up
out of
on
shape
this?
on how
Right, he
anyone
did,
pronounces
probably, I hope.
Kamala.
Without
And if we're going to have that standard, you got to hold it to both sides, not just one or the other. On to the issue at hand, I want to thank you, Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
still
for
confused
witnesses
on how to
being here
pronounce
today.
her actual
Joe
name.
Biden and
Nancy
Kamala Harris
No,
have
no.
presided over
Kamala.
Yeah, me too. I don't know.
Kamala.
I forgot.
administration
Kamala.
in
Forget it.
American history.
Potato,
Biden
potato.
and Kamala Harris inherited a country with a strong economy and next to zero inflation. Under the Biden-Harris administration, inflation skyrocketed, wages stagnated, and the American families are struggling to make ends meet, as we're all well aware of today. Biden and Kamala inherited a world at peace and turned it into a world at war. Our
Thank you,
allies are
Brandy.
under attack, our adversaries emboldened, and America embarrassed on the world stage. In fact, even being forced to evacuate 7 embassies during this administration. Biden and Kamala inherited a country with the most secure border in our nation's history. They flung our borders wide open to the largest invasion of illegal aliens our country has ever seen. The illegal aliens Biden and Kamala have led into our country have gone on to rape and murder American citizens, including our women and girls, including 158 Democrats who voted against deporting illegals who are here, murdering, raping, and who are also pedophiles, harming our women and girls. Biden and Kamala can't even tell us the difference between a woman and a mentally ill man in a dress. Of all Joe and Kamala's many failings, I'd like to focus my 5 minutes today on immigration. I'm down to about 2, so we'll be quick. During her failed 2020 presidential campaign, well before her
Resemblance.
coup
Two
against Joe
Nancy's.
Biden,
Nancy
Kamala
Botlin
Harris
from Weeds,
completed
if you
an
guys
ACLU
don't know.
candidate questionnaire
know.
outlining her
Totally
policy
twinning.
positions. I'd like to examine a few of her responses and how they've informed her work as border czar, since she says her values have not changed. Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record this questionnaire, ACLU Rights for All Candidate Questionnaire 2019, Kamala Harris.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. One of the strangest responses from Kamala in the questionnaire was when she indicated she supported providing taxpayer-funded so-called gender-affirming care for illegal aliens in immigration detention, which we all know is cutting off their private parts, taxpayer-funded cutting off of their private parts. So, Mr. Krikorian, is this occurring under this administration, and what are the serious safety consequences it may pose?
Well, I mean, the safety consequences of the procedures themselves, I'm not qualified to talk about, but clearly it serves as yet one more incentive for people to illegally immigrate into the United States. In this case,
People outside
people
the
seeking
U.S.
a
and
particular
Thailand
kind
want to do that even?
of medical procedures.
In the questionnaire, Kamala pledges to slash funding for ICE, cut immigration detention by more than 50%, and even express support for ending immigration detention.
There it
Have
is.
Biden-Harris presidential budget requests reflected Kamala's desire to cut ICE funding and immigration detention?
Detention funding, absolutely. It's decreased significantly, and in fact, it needs to be increased significantly because detention is the one way you're going to be able to deter people who want to come into the United States and be released. If you don't release them, the appeal of trying and spending all of that money is significantly less.
Which one, this one?
She pledged to end the use of ICE detainers and criticized the cooperation between ICE and state and local law enforcement. How is this going to negatively affect our country?
It would make it extremely difficult to enforce immigration law because ICE is a relatively small agency and doesn't walk around the streets asking people what their green cards are. The main vehicle for finding illegal aliens, if you don't do worksite enforcement, which this administration has essentially stopped, is working with state and local law enforcement. When they arrest people for state and local crimes, their fingerprints go to DHS and they're flagged as somebody that they know to be an illegal immigrant. A detainer is the request ICE sends out to say, hold on to this person for 48 hours at least, I mean up to 48 hours so we can go and get them. If you're not using detainers, it is one of the most pro-criminal policies you could imagine because the only people protected by stopping ICE detainers or not honoring them as sanctuary cities do, the only people protected are criminals. So it is a pro-criminal policy as well as an anti-immigration enforcement in general policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Welcome to the Oversight Committee, where we focused on waste, fraud, and abuse, not the campaign trail. This hearing
This
is
one, I
called
should've
A
led with this
Legacy
one.
of
This is-
Incompetence, Consequences
guys.
of the
The
Biden-Harris
numbers
administration
are so disturbing.
policy failures.
Outrageous.
Policies that do not deliver results for the American people, who are the taxpayers, are complete failures. Spending money and allocating money is not a policy of success. It's the outcome of the money that has been spent based on the policy. So I'd like to talk through this one that I find absolutely shocking, especially given that my district is a rural district in Georgia. This is in 2021. President Biden taps Kamala Harris to lead effort to close digital divide. The White House released their remarks by President Biden, an address to a joint session of Congress. And in the process, it will create thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that still doesn't have it. This is going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would. Vice President replied, "Of course." The President said, "Because I know it will get done." Now, fast forward to 2024. Here's the headlines. Why has Joe Biden's $42 billion broadband program not connected one single household? Maybe it's because
This is the
is also
outrageous
in the
part.
headlines that Harris announces plans to help
Dog agrees.
80% of Africa gain access to the internet, up from 40% now. Talk about a policy failure. Talk about not delivering results to the American people. Spending $42 billion, yet not having one household connected to the internet. Mr. Carr, is that actually true? Not one home got internet?
That's correct. In Georgia alone, there's about 257,000 homes and businesses that lack internet today. So that's potentially millions of people that were supposed to be connected through this program. $42 billion was enough money to actually end the digital divide in this country with competent implementation. Unfortunately, we have not cleared that hurdle. We have stories out right now that describe the implementation as chaotic, dysfunction,
None got internet.
delays,
$42
no
billion,
guidance, finger
zero
pointing,
results.
messy, delayed rollout. That's just not getting the job done.
That's right, Mr. Carr. And many of those homes and businesses are actually in my district, and they're outraged. You know, we're over $35 trillion in debt. Biden-Harris administration has been in charge for nearly 4 years, but not one home and business has gotten internet. It's outrageous. This is so concerning to me. How can the woman, Kamala Harris, that is telling the country right now she wants to be president of the United States, actually ask for this job if she has not been able to deliver what the president assigned her to do, which was to take that $42 billion and provide internet to the American people? I find that hard to believe because I own a construction company, and when we get hired to do a job, guess what? We deliver it. Let me ask you a question. Under the Trump administration, in 2020, the FCC awarded Starlink $885 million to serve 642,925 homes and businesses that lacked internet. What happened to that program?
Well, last year, after President Biden went to the White House podium and said that Elon Musk is worth being looked into, the FCC abruptly reversed course and yanked back that award. And now in other programs, the ones that are actually connecting people under this administration, we're spending dollars on the penalties. Senator Cruz recently had a report showing that in some cases we're spending $100,000 per home for broadband, when with that Starlink deal, it was $1,300. I don't think there's any way to explain the FCC's decision other than to go back to Joe Biden giving the green light to agencies to go after them.
So what has happened in the process of $42 billion being allocated for Americans to get internet? Why has that not been able, why can't Kamala Harris deliver those results?
Look, after 1,039 days and no Americans being connected, what they've been doing so far is advancing a wish list of progressive policy goals. They've been pushing for DEI requirements, climate change agenda, preferences for government-run networks, rather than just focusing on getting people connected.
You know, thank you very much, Mr. Carr. That's exactly what the American people are so fed up with, is so-called policies that actually never deliver results for the American people. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so that's coming out tomorrow at 7 a.m. And there's also a short that goes with it. We could try to peek that real quick. Why not? So I can mute that.
But you were helping out that day.
Yes, sir.
And the guy who's doing the investigation, looking into what took place, where President Trump was hit by a bullet from the assassin, another American was killed, 2 other Americans were injured. The guy who was in charge of that investigation has not talked to you, even though 16 of your agents were there that day.
Yes, sir.
Ranking Member Raskin, you reiterated and have created a boogeyman that just isn't there. I did author the EPA chapter on Project 2025, but in the course of that, I did not work with President Trump, with any of the people who work for him directly or his campaign.
Shh, don't tell anybody. We look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without
Then
objection.
the guy
Order.
says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't think he's that bent out of shape on how anyone pronounces Kamala.
In some cases, we're spending $100,000 per home for broadband, when with that Starlink deal, it was $1,300.
That's crazy.
So tell me again how our government doesn't launder our taxpayer money?
Yeah, it's oligarch type of thing, right? I mean, it's supposed to be a constitutional republic, but it's become some sort of Praetorian oligopoly. I don't know what you would call it. It's evolved or devolved.
I think it's devolved.
I think PewDiePie would say it's evolving only backwards.
I don't know if history is real or not. You know, this is what I learned in school when I was a kid. Was we left, England because we didn't want to pay money to the royal family and not get anything in return, and we were being persecuted for religion. So people left England and they settled to the United States of America. And I just feel like we're like back there.
Yeah.
We have, how many people are in our government? Like 500 something?
It's way too many. There's
Not our entire government, but like
400
Congress.
agencies and sub-agencies. There's 400 plus something. It's like $1 trillion budget or something.
But I'm talking about like in Congress, Senate, president.
There's 100 senators and 400 plus.
Yeah, so you're talking about, under 600 people that are making all these decisions
Always
with our
has been.
taxpayer money. And
Not always
you know,
that many, but, you know.
they really consider themselves like the Washington elite. Like
Oh yeah,
they do.
and they like it. Trust me. AOC enjoys her, taste of power, the hors d'oeuvres, and her new bank account balance. It's not, she's not complaining about it.
Yeah, so I mean, we're actually probably worse off now
Yeah, we need hard term limits.
in certain ways.
We need hard term limits for sure.
But this was never how the United States was supposed to be.
It's the federal agencies and the contracts and the sweetheart deals and the backroom, handshakes that get things, $100,000 per household to get hooked up versus what would have been essentially 1,300. Let's say 1,500. Let's say 2,000. Let's just round way the F up because that's what the federal government does. Let's say that costs them $2,000 to deploy per household. That's so much, $98,000 difference compared to what they're doing, which is just lining the pockets of their crony. It's got to be someone who's really close friends with Biden or Harris or something like that, right?
But the worst part is this initiative, nobody in America got the internet. They spent $42 billion.
You could have given kids the reins on the project, and they could have done a better job, like a high school science team. It's one of those projects. Say a good one.
But
the most
MTG,
talented.
She brings up a really good point, and the MSM is not sharing this news, but basically what she was saying is Biden signed into order this $42 billion deal where Kamala's job as vice president was to get connectivity and internet service to all of these rural Americans, a lot in MTG's district.
Sure.
And literally nobody has gotten internet.
Yeah.
But we see these news stories that we've helped Africa get connected. And while that's great, if that's, what we want to do with our surplus of money, it's like outrageous that that money was spent and nobody in the United States benefited from it.
Yeah.
And she's trying to run for president.
The only thing we could do is get them out of there. That's it. Who was it? I think RFK was saying to Tucker, or one of those interviews, was that the Democrats at this point are not voting for the person anymore. It's the apparatus surrounding the person. It's just the party. It's like a team sport. It's like they're rooting for their football team. It's all it's become.
But
and,
what
and their
is
team
that
is
at
not.
this
No, their
point?
team's not even that good. It's
Yeah,
look,
what are-
like you said,
what are we
42
voting
billion,
for?
and not a single house has been connected. I could have done a better job than that.
So
By myself,
basically,
with a big old roll of Cat 5. I could have done
based on that scenario that MTG painted, if you voted for Democrats, you're just voting for your taxpayer money to not benefit you, to just benefit foreign affairs, or just overspends for something that could have been bought with $1,300, but they're spending almost $100K for it.
Because someone needs to get paid. You know what I mean?
So I just don't understand,
It's,
what's the appeal to vote Democrat right now? To legalize
Just your team. It's just
abortion?
if they're still hanging on to their team. It's like those guys who are rooting for the Cubs forever, no matter what. That's all it is.
So.
That's all it's become.
But I mean, I haven't had anybody once give me a compelling argument other than women's rights why they want to vote
They don't
blue.
want to hear about Trump's policies, even though they're
Right.
all brilliant. He goes into it. Let's see, off the top of my head, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Obviously, a stronger border, healthier food supply. Those are like big policy planks just right there that I rattled off. And if I had a little more time to think, I can come up with a few more that he's talked about. What else has he talked about? Beautiful babies, right? More babies, IVF. Hey, Xana, what's up?
What I thought was really interesting that Trump talked about recently was not allowing credit card companies to charge these crazy interest rates. Like right now we have credit card companies, charging 20 up to upwards of 30-35% interest. And he wants to drop that and cap it at 10%.
So I'm not sure about the mechanics of that, but he has talked about obviously buying a house, that goal more attainable too. Which is like, again, this is not what you're getting from Kamala, from what I see, right? Because I'm not doing huge deep dives. It's just at this point she hasn't said much, and everything that's out there is out there. But her thing is she'll just talk about, I come from a middle class. She goes into this weird political, auto
because she's not really answering the questions. You know, there's like triggers, and then she goes into a rant.
Middle class family, and
Is she really a person? Is she a robot, guys?
I don't know where she. I hope she grew up in
Giving me
Canada.
like Westworld vibes. You know, they get a prompt and they go on a tangent.
They just have these talking points. Like, stick to the talking points, and we're gonna make sure you'll be okay. That's all they say. It's just talking points all the way down.
And now I'm like really noticing when she's on TV that earring that looks like, you know, that earpiece.
Did you hear the company that makes that? They put out something. Did you see what they put out? Let's see if I can find this really quickly. This is good. If I can find it. So obviously you have the let's see.
Yeah.
Company says Kamala Harris's debate earring strikingly similar to its Bluetooth device. Offers to make ones for Trump. They took a little bit of a shot at him. Let's
see the picture.
Yeah. A tech company has added fuel to the Kamala Harris earrings conspiracy theory. You know, if the press is labeling a conspiracy theory, it's probably better than chances are. Like 60% chances that it's actually what's happening, right? That's probably what we're at this day and age. Strikingly similar to the Bluetooth devices it makes, and has even offered to design orange ones for Donald Trump. Claims that Harris 59 was fitted with clip-on audio headphones disguised as pearl earrings for her showdown against the former president, 78, have been spreading like wildfire on social media in the wake of Tuesday's presidential debate. Now, Germany-based company Icebox Sound Solutions has weighed in on the viral saga after conspiracy-minded Trump supporters claimed the vice president was wearing a pair of its Bluetooth devices, the Nova H1 audio earring. Now, yeah, there it is. That's the Nova H1.
If it looks like a duck, if it
wow,
quacks like a duck.
That looks just like the earring. That looks just like it.
Looks just like it. We go back up.
But you know, I will say this. This needs to be said. After every like presidential debate, people will always say, "Were they wearing an earpiece?" I wonder how long that goes back. You know, how long? Because it always comes up. Jacqueline, there's something that you probably need to see too. That was a good, like this. She went off, and I think that you'd really appreciate it. And once you see how old she is, you're gonna be like, "What the heck?" This was a Foreign Affairs Committee. If I knew how to spell foreign, that would be great. This didn't make it into the clips of the week, but oh boy. It was powerful. She because it's probably because I didn't really clip it up yet, and we're gonna be doing it next week. It might make it into next week's clips.
Did you make me my Victoria Sparks mashup?
No, I'm totally behind on these high production quality videos. High production quality videos.
Come to order. The purpose of this hearing is to analyze the ongoing crisis in Venezuela and the United States' response to Nicolas Maduro's attempt to steal Venezuelans' election on the 28th of July. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. And I need to say that this is one of the most important hearings that I will do or that I have done in my time in Congress, and the only one, unfortunately, that the United States Congress, including the Senate, will be conducting on the stolen elections in Venezuela. So in that country, in Venezuela, there is a cruel contradiction that has unfolded. Maduro has intensified its brutality through jail and death. In the meantime, unfortunately, American and European oil companies led by Chevron, Repsol, Eni, and Morel have now increased their pumping and their profits, directly fueling the tyrannical machinery of oppression. Look at this poster right here.
Look at graph.
As oppression goes
Look
up,
at graph.
so does the desire of companies to do business with Maduro. Shame on them. And here is the proof. Let's see. Let's go over here. Look.
She's out of range, so she's not. You can't really hear her, but you can tell she's serious.
And Morel, France, $96 million in profits. I represent the city of Miami. We are pro-capitalism. We are pro-free market economy. I am very much pro-energy sector, making a lot of
Do
money.
you want to guess how old she is?
But there are lines you do
60s.
not cross
How are you?
when
How did you know
profiting
that?
from
It's a
other
gift. It's a
people.
gift. I guess your weight
Since
too.
the
at it.
I think
since the
someone else.
day
I think
of the
it was
election,
Brandy or it was
2,500
Stacy that knew
Venezuelans
that.
have been
Also,
thrown in jail,
would've
and a
guessed
bunch
50s.
more
She's
have
hot,
been
though.
killed. Anyone who opposes Maduro faces a so-called re-education plan at prisons, which in reality are concentration camps by the names of Tocorón and Chocuyito.
Is that what's
In
coming
other
to
words,
us when
the
Harris
Venezuelan
wins?
jails are crammed to unprecedented levels, and all these are facts. So are the Maduro coffers, courtesy of American and European companies. Once again, shame on you. Chevron, Repsol, Eni, and Morel, blood is on your hands, and it will be on yours, the Biden administration, and on us, the United States Congress, if we do not act today. We are the United States, regardless of the party. We are the beacon of hope. We are the land of liberty. We're the moral leaders of the world. We're the beacon of democracy. So let's behave accordingly. The Dems and the Republicans. Venezuelan oil exports are at the highest level in 4 years, close to 1 million barrels a day. Right here it is. Look, almost 900,000. Look at the graph.
Look at graph.
Last month, Maduro made $666 million. What a figure, huh? What does that remind you of? Exactly who he is, the devil. 666. So what is it that we
Gotta
have to
put
do
this.
right now,
It's
Dems
gotta
and the Republicans together, specifically the Biden administration, who has all the power in your hands? First of all, I believe that we have to put a pause on every oil license for Venezuela granted by the Treasury Department, a department that the State Department guides what to do. We know very well that we are in an election cycle and that the White House needs cheap gas at the pump because it's all politics. But you know, we can buy it from our friends, Guyana or Ecuador or Colombia, or we can pump it here at home. That's number one. Number two, there's a guy by the name of Edmundo Gonzalez who won the presidential election fair and square. He won 70% of the vote, according to all data. So why don't we recognize him as the legitimate president of Venezuela right now, as you, the Biden administration, accorded in Barbados? You, Maduro, you hold elections, and we are going to lift the sanctions. We lifted the sanctions, but he did not hold free and fair elections. Number three, let's confiscate Maduro's buddies' properties. No more Disney World or Broadway, while Maria Corina Machado's supporters are being beaten on the streets and raped in jail. Spain, Argentina, and Panama should be doing the same thing. These assets are fruits of a poisonous tree with roots steeped in suffering.
Ooh, she's good. She's good.
And finally,
You don't get this from
you know,
Kamala Harris, by the way.
Maduro y Diosdado Cabello.
She
This
Republican?
level of rhetoric, or this level of
It's on the
this
website of the State Department website. So the Department
She's
of
a good
Justice
orator.
should put a price tag of
Loquacious. I don't know.
$25
There's a few different words you could use.
on their
Is she
heads,
Republican?
which is the
Yes,
maximum
yes.
amount
This is
that's allowed
chairing the House
by
Foreign
law.
Affairs Committee.
Speaks a lot about
I am
Miami, because
sure,
Miami used to always be blue,
distinguished
but
gentlemen,
not
She's
of
good.
late.
that someone
She's
in the
Powerful.
Venezuelan
This is
armed
definitely going to
forces
be in
will
next
be
week's
highly
clips of the week. But I just
to put
it
their
was
heads
Friday.
on a
This is Friday's
silver
hearing at 11
platter
p.m. Well, 11 a.m.
for
Sorry.
that amount of money. period.
So I think
That is
the
what
bottom
it
line is that these American-based corporations are donating hundreds of millions of dollars to his presidential campaigns, essentially that's American meddling in politics. It's all for oil, essentially, for oil permits and stuff like that.
This administration lets so many nefarious things happen, and they get called out and literally nothing happens.
Now I'm going to say a few words in Spanish for the Venezuelans.
Like,
who are
nobody should be
watching in
voting
Venezuela.
for them.
Ustedes no están solos. Millones de ustedes en la oposición han hecho una labor titánica.
The ability to go into that. I know it's the House. It's the House in the United States of America, but this is the Foreign Affairs Committee. So the ability to snap in and out of other languages is, I think, it's a really powerful thing.
No tiene el apoyo de la gente, ahí lo
No idea what she's saying. I think it's something like she was saying before. Hopefully.
Sigan de pie. No desfallezcan. Nosotros estamos con ustedes. Now, the chair now recognizes the ranking member, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Castro, for a statement.
So those are my favorite clips of the week. I can go in and just, give it a little double check. There might be some other things that we can check out together, but those were the most, more powerful ones.
Well, let's go back and let's, address some of the things that we watched together. So we talked about, MTG's rants and, how appalling it is that literally we have no idea where $42 billion went that was supposed to give rural Americans internet. And then
That's insane.
What was Mace talking about? She started off commenting that what the press or our government who was shaming Trump about not pronouncing Ms. Harris. I don't even know how to say her name right. Kamala. I don't know what the right way is.
Cannot pronounce Kamala's name correctly are elementary-aged children. I would like to enter into the record an article by Newsweek saying Bill Clinton pronounces Kamala Harris' name wrong during DNC speech. Bill Clinton, along with Al Sharpton, rapper Lil Jon. Let's not forget that Joe Biden can't say her name right. Neither can Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And this morning on Morning Joe, Joan Baez called her a camel. So I don't want to hear it. It's fake outrage. I would like to also enter into the record a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from Vanderbilt, Michael Eric Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me racist on CNN, shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without
then
objection.
the guy says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't
why
think
were
he's
they
that bent
objecting?
out of shape on how anyone
What were
pronounces
they objecting to?
Kamala. And if we're going to have that standard, you got to hold it to both sides, not just one or the other. On to the issue at hand, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman.
She was on a CNN panel, I think, and there was a professor on that panel with her
From Vanderbilt.
that was basically calling her a racist for the arguments she was making, I'm guessing. I didn't watch the panel. I saw clips of her Twitter feed, where she goes into this guy for sliding in her DMs after calling her a racist. And she said stuff like, at least a conservative guy would buy you a drink. He calls you a racist and then asks you out to dinner, which is like totally... a move. So that's what happened. So basically, he laid into her on the panel, called her a racist. Not a very nice thing to call somebody. And then right after, after the panel, was like, hey, can we take a picture? And then after they took a picture together, slid into her DMs.
So she was trying to say, like, it's so stupid that we're being outraged.
Yeah.
We're outraged that people are mispronouncing her name wrong.
Manufactured.
Everybody is.
It's manufactured outrage.
For our witnesses being here today, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have presided over the worst presidential administration in American history. Biden and Kamala Harris inherited a country with a strong economy and next to zero inflation. Under the Biden-Harris administration, inflation skyrocketed, wages stagnated, and the American families are struggling to make ends meet, as we're all well aware of today. Biden and Kamala inherited a world at peace and turned it into a world at war. Our allies are under attack, our adversaries emboldened, and America embarrassed on the world stage. In fact, even being forced to evacuate 7 embassies during this administration.
That's crazy.
Biden and Kamala
That seems like a
inherit
high
one
number.
of the most secure border in
I
our
think it's
nation's
just turmoil,
history.
you know,
They've
not
flung
lack
our
of
borders
stability,
wide
probably.
open to the largest invasion of illegal aliens our country has ever seen. The illegal aliens Biden and Kamala have led into our country have gone on to rape and murder American citizens, including our women and girls, including 158 Democrats who voted against deporting illegals who are here, murdering, raping, and who are also pedophiles, harming our women and girls. Biden and Kamala can't even tell us the difference between a woman and a mentally ill man in a dress.
It's like the greatest hits, you know, only the opposite of that. It's like the biggest catastrophes of the administration is what she's
I
basically
know, I
going
can't
through.
believe that this is real.
During her failed 2020 presidential campaign, well before her coup against Joe Biden, Kamala Harris
They would have had a
completed
shot
an
with
ACLU
RFK
candidate
if they had
questionnaire
embraced
outlining
him,
her policy
or just had a
positions.
process that
I'd
they were
like
supposed
to
to
examine
have.
a few of her responses and how they've informed her work as border czar, since she says her values have not changed. Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record this questionnaire, ACLU Rights for All Candidate Questionnaire 2019, Kamala Harris.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. One of the strangest responses from Kamala in the questionnaire was when she indicated she supported providing taxpayer-funded so-called gender-affirming care for illegal aliens in immigration detention, which we all know is cutting off their private parts. Taxpayer-funded cutting off of their private parts.
Go for it. What do you want to say?
So, you know, I hear this a lot, and it brings up a lot for me because my background is in psychology. I have a master's, and the last paper that I had to write for my master's was actually about transgender surgeries. And this wasn't that long ago, you know, we're talking about maybe 15 years ago. And back then, you, as an adult, in order for you to get the gender affirming surgery, or whatever we're calling it now, you had to have seen a psychiatrist for 5 years straight. And that psychiatrist used to have to sign off that yes, you were like mentally stable enough to have this surgery. And this was completely an elective surgery. Like insurance never paid for this, like Medicaid never paid for this. And fast forward to today, it's so shocking when I hear this, because now we're talking about kids that can't consent to things are being allowed to have these types of surgeries. And in some states, it's paid for by the government. And now Kamala's initiative is to give these surgeries to prisoners or to illegal aliens. Like, to me, it's mind-blowing. Like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get here? I just don't understand it. And that's going to be the end of that rant. I just wanted to say it here right now so I don't have to keep bringing it up. But I'd love to hear everybody else's opinions on it, because to me it's shocking, and I just don't understand how we got here so quickly.
Well, look how Jerry Nadler got here in the 90s. Oh, my God. Are you seeing this on the bottom? That is what the inspiration behind Peter Griffin. Come on. How is that not?
And
what a full unit.
And why are you showing us this now?
Someone in the chat was talking about the Penguin show and
And
Nadler.
they think it's based on Jerry Nadler?
It's possible. Who was it? Who led me down this path? There it is. Mr. Boston's on tonight. Okay. Sorry. We'll finish off with
So,
Nancy
Mr.
Mace.
Krikorian, is this occurring under this administration, and what are the serious safety consequences it may pose?
Well, I mean, the safety consequences of the procedures themselves, I'm not qualified to talk about, but clearly it serves as yet one more incentive for people to illegally immigrate into the United States. In this case, people seeking a particular kind of medical procedures.
In the questionnaire, Kamala
Can we
pledges
offer
to slash
LASIK
funding for
eye surgery?
ICE, cut immigration detention by more than 50%,
Everybody?
and even express support for ending immigration detention. Have Biden-Harris presidential budget requests reflected Kamala's desire to cut ICE funding and immigration detention?
Detention funding, absolutely.
Is she
It's
nailing
decreased
Kamala's
significantly,
name, or
and
that how
in
you-
fact, it
I don't
needs
know.
to be
Oh my
increased
God.
significantly because
How do we find out?
detention is the one way you're going to be able to deter people who want to come into the United States and be released. If you don't release them, the appeal of trying and spending all of that money is significantly less.
She pledged to end the use of ICE detainers and criticized the cooperation between ICE and state and local law enforcement. How is this going to negatively affect our country?
It would make it extremely difficult to enforce immigration law because ICE is a relatively small agency and doesn't walk around the streets asking people what their green cards are. The main vehicle for finding illegal aliens, if you don't do worksite enforcement, which this administration has essentially stopped, is working with state and local law enforcement. When they arrest people for state and local crimes, their fingerprints go to DHS and they're flagged as somebody that they know to be an illegal immigrant. A detainer is the request ICE sends out to say, hold on to this person for 48 hours at least, up to 48 hours so we can go and get them. If you're not using detainers, it is one of the most pro-criminal policies you could imagine because the only people protected by stopping ICE detainers or not honoring them as sanctuary cities do, the only people protected are criminals. So it is a pro-criminal policy as well as an anti-immigration enforcement in general policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
So, I feel like, obviously immigration is like a huge topic right now in this election. And I really feel like it's kind of gotten out of control how, each side is to the extreme. Because the reality is that we're a country of immigrants. Like, the United States is a country of immigrants. And we actually have some really bad policies and really poorly executed government agencies in regards to people trying to immigrate here legally. So, that's a whole other topic, but we absolutely need to improve on our legal immigration process.
And I won't be talking about.
Oh, do you want me to stop?
No, he's going to segue for what he's talking about.
Okay, but
All right, how about
I'm
this?
done.
Ms. Perryman.
Okay. Go on. Yeah, sorry. I thought I was going to nail the segue.
No, and then the last thing I was going to say, though, is, and then you have the other extreme where we're just allowing everybody in. And the problem with that is, even if it's just 1% of those people coming in illegally that are criminals, like that 1%, like, trumps everybody. Like, we're not safe right now with our immigration policies. So the whole thing, in my opinion, just needs to be revamped.
Watch her bob and weave. This is Ms. Perryman's going to bob and weave around this
her
situation.
role as the borders
question.
are to be a success or a failure.
I don't agree with the premise of your question.
What premise is that?
They got
you're
chemistry.
calling her a border czar.
Okay, so let's just say this. On March 24th, 2021, the quote from President Biden, I've asked her, the vice president today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and countries that are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. So whether or not you want to call her the border czar, the boss, the don, the grand poobah,
Or the vice president of the United States.
or the border, the person that the President of the United States put in charge of the border, and this is what he tasked her with. One thing is undeniably clear. She was tasked with mitigating and reducing the flow, or better stated, the flood of illegal migrants from 4 countries: Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Do you agree with that? That the president
He's so
tasked her
disappointed
with
right
mitigating the flow of illegal migration from those 4 countries?
And I think as the president called on Congress from day one of his administration
Okay,
to do
so,
something about our
Mr.
immigration crisis,
Chairman,
I think it's also
Mr. Chairman,
asked
you're
the
under
vice
oath,
president-
Mr. Perryman. Chairman, I reclaim my time. So Ms. Perryman doesn't want to answer a very simple question. Everybody just saw it. The American people just saw that quote. He gave her, that was her task. Get these numbers down. So did she get those numbers down? Did
I
she
don't think she
succeed?
even
or did
went
she
to the
fail?
border more than
because
once.
since its inception, it was known as the Biden-Harris administration. Now she wants us to forget about the hyphen and the Harris. So Ms. Perryman doesn't want to answer. Mr. Krikorian, did she succeed or fail?
No, I'm not sure she even tried, but she didn't succeed. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so this, again, let's talk about truth. This can be objectively ascertained because we have data. Donald J. Trump was in office, and the Biden-Harris administration has been in office. Under Donald J. Trump, the illegal migration from those 4 countries was 1.8 million. Under this administration, it was 4.3 million. It's a 239% increase, and by any empirical measure, that was an abject failure in reducing illegal migration. So Joe Biden, Ms. Perriman, on numerous occasions, along with Kamala Harris, has asserted that the border was secure. Do you believe the border is secure?
I believe we need a border bill.
Yeah,
that this
it's
Congress
not a
needs to
trick
pass.
question. Not a trick question. Yes or no? Is the border secure right now? Is our southern border secure?
I'm not here to testify about that.
Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. It's we all know it's not. In fact, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified under oath in front of God, country, and Congress, and I quote, "The border is no less secure than it was previously." And then he also said, we don't bear responsibility for a broken system. But here's the thing. We've got data, and I'm glad he was impeached because he deserved it. Under even Barack Obama's administration, 4 years, illegal migration, illegal encounters was 1.7 million. Under Donald Trump, it was 1.9 million. So commiserate numbers, they're close. Under the Biden-Harris administration, that figure was 10.6 million, a 557% increase. That was an abject failure.
It's almost like it was
the
done on
Homeland Security
purpose.
Secretary was inaccurate. He was wrong, and I believe
That's
he was
just a
lying
conspiracy.
under oath.
I'm glad he was
In
impeached,
the
but
last
they should have
20 years,
finished the job in the
we got
Senate,
this.
and they didn't even
New York
get close.
Times, or was it
They
New
didn't
York
even bring it
Times?
to the floor.
Washington Post
Supposed to have a
said that,
trial in the Senate.
we had 172,000
And if they're
illegal
properly
crossings
impeached in the Senate,
in
that opens them up to
April.
civil and criminal liability. And I think there's
We
also
hadn't had
other
a month in
implications for their
20
pension
years
or something like that.
that we
So-
had
Within
over
public office.
200,000
I totally
illegal
understand the argument
Hadn't
that,
happened
you know,
in 20
people
years.
that are
Under this
illegal
administration,
immigrants
it has
pay
happened
a lot of
28
taxes here.
times. We had
And that's
Chinese
fine.
communists,
But the
migrants,
problem
people from
is,
the Chinese,
like I said, you know, even the smallest percentage of them, if they are criminals or cartels, that puts us in grave danger. And that's why we cannot support.
Pachaculan,
These
doesn't our
illegal-
government also drug deal and do that grave danger business as well? Aren't they?
Well, that's another story.
They're all kind of evil at this point.
So where's the hope? What's
I think the great
Communist China.
Trump hope.
1,282 in 2020.
get more guns, guys?
In
No.
this
kids
past
how
year,
to
was
shoot rifles.
27,000.
The pendulum's going to swing
100%
right back
increase.
to the
I
middle
really-
with Trump.
I really
Trump,
hope
RFK,
so.
Tulsi. It's like a whole
People on the terror
Avengers.
watch list. Under
team.
Donald J. Trump,
Elon.
4 years, there were 11 people that were apprehended on that list. Under this administration, it was 375. Fentanyl deaths have doubled, and the people of Texas have had to bear the brunt. In the last decade plus, we've had 299,000 criminal aliens arrested, charged with 513,000 crimes, and convicted of 187,000 of them. We're talking about murder, rape, kidnapping, burglary, etc. The big and the greatest task, Mr. Chairman, any of us have in this dais is to keep Americans safe. Because if you're not safe, then you're not free. And it's very clear that if you want more of the same, chaos, crime, cartels, corruption, then you keep the same people in power. But if you want change and you want to be safe and you want to put America first, you have an option to do that too. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
All right. This rally was great. That was Danica Patrick and RFK and Tulsi last night did a rally together. It's very good. I recommend it. But that's where we're going to end it. That's about right. Those are my favorite clips of the week. Some of it, I mean, I leave it to the audience and, you know, whoever, has the highest count. I kind of just sort it like that, and it makes it for easy work, but also I like to get the input. I want to know, because if you go and you watch the video tomorrow, there's not going to be any music on it. On those videos that are 20 minutes long with 3 or 4 different legislators questioning witnesses, do those videos, should those have like a soundtrack like Beethoven and Vivaldi?
I think so. My vote's yes.
Or should those just be straight up exchanges? So I would like to hear.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear your comments in the chat, and also on the videos themselves. You know, soundtrack, no soundtrack. Maybe I'll put a poll out. It's a little late in this one to put out a poll, but I would like to get your input at some point, chat. So I appreciate everybody. Let me know.
Happy Sunday, guys.
Happy Sunday. Hope you had a great weekend. And we'll leave you to it. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. Really appreciate it. As we like to say, yes, they should have music, I'm assuming. Yes. Next time on the classical music, try Lynn's Front. I'll try to find something in the public domain, because that's the trick. Most of the classical music itself is in the public domain, but finding a composer who put the work in the public domain is a little tricky. But I'll write that down. Where is that one? Liszt Franz. All right. Thanks, everybody. Knowledge is power. Subscribe for more. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.